RevOpsAF, the only podcast for people who are RevOpsAF and want to learn all about things that are RevOps AF.
Our goal is to give the revenue operations community, that includes marketing, sales, and CS, for any of you not paying attention, the skills needed to accelerate their careers.
Most sales tools just record calls. Attention.com uses AI to unlock their full power. Instantly automate CRM updates, score every call with customizable coaching scorecards, generate powerful workflows in multiple languages to support global teams. Top revenue teams like Bamboo HR and Scale AI don't just record calls, they use Attention.com to take action on them. Learn more at Attention.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of RevOpsAF, the podcast. I am your co-host, Matthew Volm, CEO and founder of RevOps Co-op, a community of 18,000 plus operators from all across the globe. And today I am joined by one of them, who is also the head of marketing at RevOps Co-op, Camela Thompson. We are here to talk all about green and red flags as it relates to revenue operations consultants and consulting firms. Camela, why don't you first tell us a little bit about yourself and your background? You obviously have a lot of experience in revenue operations, and also about some of your own experience as a RevOps consultant and as an operator who's leveraged a lot of consultants, because I think that part is super important to why you're a subject matter expert in this sort of topic and arena.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're starting there, because it's a little weird to have a head of marketing talking about RevOps consulting if you don't have the context. So yeah. I spent 15 years in B2B, well, I'm still working with B2B SaaS, but in revenue operations before it was a thing. And what I mean by that is people kind of plugged me in wherever there was a problem after I established expertise as an analyst and systems admin. So I've moved between sales, marketing, and CS ops, and I've worked as an admin in systems ranging from, the traditional Salesforce, HubSpot, Eloqua, Marketo. I've been an admin for all of those. I've also worked in Catalyst and Zendesk, so I've kind of had my hands on the full stack and the supporting software that touches those systems. But I think the combination of analyst and system admin is why I was and curiosity and stubbornness is why I love really inspecting the intersection between process, systems, teams, and figuring out where things are breaking down. So yeah, those 15 years, I've worked with a lot of consultants. Since then, I've been a consultant. I moved between being a marketer, selling to revenue operators, and being a revenue operator. I feel like I can't move completely away from revenue operations because it changes so much so fast, as everybody knows. So I still take on clients and see the good, bad, and ugly.
Everything. Definitely a lot of different things that folks can use consultants for. And so what I want to start with is, I'm sure a lot of people out there who are listening to this are either revenue operations consultants themselves or operators or folks who may be leveraging consultants in some way, shape, or form to help them at their current companies. So you gave a couple of examples, but I want you to hit on just a couple of more of, tell us, based on your background experience, where have you seen consultants and consulting firms leveraged the best? Is it different between sizes and stages of companies? What are some of the ways that people can best leverage revenue operations consultants and consulting firms?
So that's a really great question, because there's a wide swath of consultants. And I think today we're going to focus specifically on people who really play with the CRM. But I've worked with people who specialize, they have a very narrow niche, and they specialize in commission plans once you've already got your plan established. I've seen people in early stage companies really look at the scalability of the business and do a lot of analysis around total addressable market and potential of the company. So there's a really wide array, and there's a wide array in how those consultants are contracted. So we have agencies that tend to productize their offerings very smartly. So when you scale, you want to look at things as how can we create bundles of services and understand the scope so we can give a price range. So that would be like a CRM migration or a CRM implementation or something in between those things. I see a lot of freelancers out there on the other end of the spectrum where the scope of work is much more flexible. Maybe they're hourly and you can plug them into your team as needed. So an example on the marketing operations side is a campaign specialist who can come in and run email marketing campaigns in Marketo, which is pretty difficult to use for the average person. There's a wide range, and I think consultants have a really difficult job, especially freelancers who are plug and play. You really need to establish a good communication and process for understanding scope. And I think a lot of clients don't always understand that you need to get the NDA in place and all these things before a contract is ever signed, so your consultants can have access to your system to understand and communicate a true scope of work. Because as a hiring party, you're either hiring people because you don't have time to do those things on your team, or you don't fully understand what the issues are, or a combination of the two because you don't have time to understand the issues. So giving those consultants access to your system ahead of time is going to be really essential in understanding how good they are and getting a better scope of work, so you're not constantly kicking the can on the project or settling for closing the project when you only get a fraction of the work done.
It all makes sense. I think the main things you can use, obviously, freelancers or agencies. You can leverage groups that have a lot of very specific expertise that may deal only in comp plans, others that may be more systems focused, others that may be more generalist, that you can, kind of amplify your team. And we at RevOps Co-op have several community partners who are great consulting firms, folks like Apparatus who focus on the Salesforce ecosystem, partners like Aptitude 8 who focus on HubSpot, and then Ology Consulting, who is more of a generalist, sort of RevOps consulting firm. So lots of different ways that you can interact and engage with consultants. And you obviously have plenty of experience on both sides of the coin, like we talked about. And so we want now to move into the red and green flags. And before we get to the good things to look for, let's start with the bad, the red flags. So if you're an operator out there evaluating consultants, whether they're freelancers or agencies, or maybe you're an agency or a freelancer yourself, trying to figure out how to best position your services and yourself, your offering to your clients, what are some of the more harmful behaviors that consultants can do when interacting with the client or when going through the sales process, right? That might be one of those things that, if mentioned in this way, that might be one of those red flags that's kind of raised that people should look out for.
Yeah. And I love that you're starting kind of with the selling process, because if you can get in front of these red flags and not hire the wrong person, that's the right thing to do. I also want to speak to consultants who are accidentally falling into a bucket.
Yeah.
One of the biggest red flags is that they're only talking to the hiring party in the company, and they're not insisting on speaking to all the stakeholders who will be impacted. So, for example, if we have a marketing team that owns revenue operations, which does happen, not often, but it happens, and they want to, quote unquote, fix their instance, going from marketing analytics all the way to CRM, if you're not talking to sales leadership, that's a huge red flag. If they're not asking for access to your system and you're wanting them to work in your system, that's another red flag. And if they insist just after talking to one or two people that they've seen the same scenario and they have a playbook that they're going to put in place, that's another red flag. So every company is similar but different. Everybody has the same problems, but how you solve them and how you think about scaling the business needs to be flexible because you have to meet your customers where they are and not. I see too many people trying to force them into where they should be theoretically in 5 years when the management team isn't bought in. They're not going to work with you to make sure that their team is enabled in using the system how you envision it. You just really have to be able to get in there, talk to the key stakeholders, and set realistic expectations around what is and isn't possible given how engaged they are. So there's this real empathetic human element that needs to come into play, and you have to handle it tactfully, and it's really difficult. Another thing I'd love to raise that people need to be careful of is a lot of times you're being brought into a situation as a consultant where there's already people actively working on what you're trying to do or have put the thing in place. And you always should assume good intent and that they meant well when they did it, even if it's not working now. So it's really important to establish quickly good relationships with the people who were there ahead of time because they can give you a lot of context. And I made this mistake early in my career and had to be coached out of it. Like, the worst thing you can do is come in and say, well, why did they do it this way? This is dumb.
Yeah.
You want to be able to have a dialogue with them to figure out why they did that, to figure out why it's not working now and how to change. So just be careful when you're talking about the system. I've had clients who said, well, we've never had real RevOps in there, with the person who was trying to do it on the call, and that was really hurtful.
Yeah.
So I feel an obligation as a consultant to then reach out to that person and say, hey, I know your job's really hard. You've had this really big job description. They shouldn't have said that, and I'm really sorry. Then go talk to the other person and be like, they're trying the best they could.
Yeah. Two things that you mentioned that kind of jump out at me. One is, we all know that everything in revenue operations definitely spans the entire revenue engine. That means it goes across multiple teams. So understanding all those different stakeholders, even if it is stuff that might be more, call it sales ops focus or marketing ops focus, those are still going to have implications on other teams, right? Data is going to need to get tagged in a certain way. Teams are going to need to build reports or evaluate things and generate insights differently, right? So there's always going to be downstream and kind of upstream impacts. Definitely needs to be understood. And the other thing, you mentioned upfront hiring a consultant because there's either expertise that you don't have and you need from someone, or you just don't have the time. And I know when I've talked to people who might be looking to hire their first revenue operations person, or they're trying to decide, hey, do I hire someone full time? Do I bring on a consulting firm? One of the things that I always mention to them, the value of bringing on, say, an agency or a freelancer, someone who has seen things across multiple types of businesses and customers, is that you get that perspective from them. They are able to see a lot of these same problems at a multitude of other companies in different industries, sizes, but also a lot of companies similar to you, which can definitely help inform what typically works and what doesn't work. That's the value of having that experience. But you don't want firms, agencies, or people who are like, because my other client who looked like you did it this way, that's the way that you have to do it, or that's the way that you should do it. You may very well land on that same solution as the one that you should ultimately adopt or implement, but how you get there is really important, and you can't just skip a bunch of steps in the middle and assume that everyone is created the same way and that just because it worked there, it's going to work here as well.
I have a perfect example of that. I'm working with a client who had a consultant come in and change the sales stages and make a ton of fields required around a sales methodology that the sales team never was briefed on. The sales leader didn't agree to use, and they got rid of stages that the sales team were actively using without ever talking to them. Mm-hmm. So coming in after that situation made it much more difficult to work with the sales team and build trust there. Trust is so important because I need to be able to talk to the sales team to figure out where they're at and what they'll use to get anything out of them. So what ended up happening is the person in place ripped out all of the validation. There were no fields required. The companies weren't even being associated to the deals. It just set them back a lot, and wish people would be just a little bit more cautious about implementing a playbook without, like you said, talking to all the stakeholders and then getting a temperature check for what they're willing to tolerate.
Yep. And all right, so we talked through a lot of things on red flags or harmful behaviors. Let's move on and talk about some of the green flags or things that indicate you want to definitely run towards these people, right? They're doing things the right way. So it'll be easy to assume or say, well, just do the opposite of what we just talked about, right? But I wish things are never that simple, right? So what are some of the things that can be those green flags, those good things that folks can do to position themselves to work with you as a consultant or an agency to actually deliver some value and be the types of people you want to surround yourself with?
So the big ones are they have really solid references. So if you're a consultant, ask people for feedback and be proactive about gathering references and make sure you understand where they stand on the scale of you're great versus it didn't quite work out.
I tolerated you.
Yes. Yeah. Because I had to.
Yeah.
That's not good. I think other really good practices are working with people who will tell you they're not a great fit for something or will raise red flags when you ask for something and they think you're not ready for it yet or it doesn't make sense. So you want an expert who's willing to voice their opinion and tell the truth, even when it doesn't work in their best interest. So if one client at the organization wants a system built for 5 years from now and the sales team doesn't, I can make more money by building the system 5 years from now, but I know that their user adoption is going to be next to zero and they're going to be working out of spreadsheets. So working with somebody who can take that temperature check and meet everybody where they are and talk you down in scope is actually a really positive thing. And then if it's possible, work with somebody who isn't married to one system and is willing to consider other options, but be really careful about somebody who's pushing you towards something that they prefer. And that can be really difficult because a lot of the systems experts, they have to specialize in a system because it's just too hard to know a lot. So when you're not sure whether or not you need to migrate to a new CRM or if you need a new instance, it's really good to work with people who are experts in the CRM you're currently in and experts in the CRM you're moving to get a real objective opinion on what's the work that's going to have to happen, the groundwork that's going to have to happen either way, and are you really in a better position if you move the systems? So don't be afraid to contact multiple people, reach out to folks in the RevOps Co-op, talk to experts that you see on LinkedIn to figure out, am I solving this problem correctly, and do they know of people who are really good at this?
Yeah. The point you made about the things that they don't do is super important. So 100% agree. Ask people, what don't you do? Like we're talking about these things where you can help me. What don't you do, or where do you draw the line? And if you get the answer back that, oh no, we can do everything, right? That's a red flag. For example, talking to one of our community partners earlier who are some of the best RevOps consulting firms out there. I remember talking with Aptitude 8. We were talking about the different things that they do and some of the examples and kind of work that they've done with some of their clients like Uber, and they've done work with HubSpot themselves, and right, great, impressive list. And I asked them that question. I was like, well, what things don't you do? And their co-CEO had an immediate response of like, well, we're not a marketing like demand agency, right? So if you need like, SEO help or, like demand generation services, like that's not us. You got to go somewhere else for that. So having answers for that, super, super important. Because again, you want folks that know the things that they're good at. And while it's easy for everyone to say that, and I mean, it's also this kind of part of revenue operations is like you're going to be faced with things that you've never done before. And your job is to go and figure them out. That also means like part of you figuring them out doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have to do them yourself. And that might mean like, hey, I can't do that for you. Someone else has to do that for you. So having people that are able to say no and draw that line is super, super important.
Or at least communicate what the gaps are. So as an example, I've had to build capacity plans, but I wasn't given access to the finance team or the sales team. Like, how do you build a sales capacity plan if you're not sure the data in the CRM reflects the actual revenue numbers? So being very vocal about what's holding you back, super critical.
Yeah. All right. And then the question I want to end with here is just some sort of, I guess, what's your spiciest, hottest, most, what's the hottest pepper in the world? Is it like ghost pepper or something? What's your like, what's your ghost pepper spiciest hot take as it relates to this particular topic?
Okay. I don't want to pick on a particular CRM, but I will in a second. I'm sorry. People who say their CRM is the best are wrong. 100%. I don't care which CRM you're saying is the best. You're wrong because, one, the perfect solution doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. It's different. Needs are different at every company stage, and you have to take expenses into account. And the days of building the system 5 years from now are gone. You need to just be scrappy and meet people where they're at. And if you're bleeding orange, oh my gosh, the workflows, the integrations, my eye twitches. I work in that system. It does a lot of things really well, but the workflow automation triggers. And I'm sorry, but the CRMs out there that are the big players, they were built for new acquisition and they don't do the other stuff really well. So please, I know we have some partners at the RevOps Co-op who are challenging the status quo. Give me a demo. I really want to see something that doesn't do the things that happen in the other systems. Thank you.
Yeah. I always have a very hard time. My kids ask me this, or we talk about this all the time. Like, they play a lot of sports, and so it's always like, who's the best player on the team? And like, if we were watching a basketball game, it's like, I don't know how to answer that, because as a basketball player, you're playing offense, you're playing defense, right? Like, some people are really great at shooting, others are great at posting up, some are super athletic, others are not, some are fast, some are slower, and it's like there's a lot of different things you need to take into consideration. And then also it's who are you surrounded with on the rest of your team? Do you have a deep bench? Are you getting right?
There are some phenoms out there that are just objectively amazing, but your team's not going to win if they're the only good player.
Yeah, and so the same thing goes on the system, right? Like, you take companies, they may be identical, they may look the same. One tool might actually be a better fit for them than the other. It's not because of one particular thing, it's because of a collection of things. Or you could have a situation where a multitude of options could actually work to solve those problems. So yeah, I don't like using that word. You can have favorites, right? Like, we can have favorites, like, that's okay, but doesn't mean that it's the best for everyone.
And if AI is teaching us nothing else, it's that everything's subject to change all the time, and keep an open mind.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, Camela, thank you very much for dropping some knowledge on us today, walking us through red flags, green flags when it comes to revenue operations consultants. But that's all I got for you, my friends. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the flip side.
Hope I see everyone at the next RevOpsAF conference.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode, everybody.
For more great content like this, join our community at RevOpsCoop.com and check out the links provided in the show notes.
Keep it RevOpsAF, y'all.